Greetings, and welcome back to Xenos Analysis. I am Colonel Ichabod Rhombus, and we will begin this lecture with a quote concerning today's topic. A lone Hormagaunt is little more than target practice. 100, however, is a different beast entirely. There are many terrifying organisms that comprise the various hive fleets of the nightmarish Xenos race labelled by the Imperium of Man as Tyranid. Titanic monsters stride across the battlefield, crashing and rending, tearing tanks apart with superlative ease. Others lurk beneath the soil, burrowing, closing upon their targets before exploding forth to wreak terror and havoc. Others employ a different means to hide from the eyes of their prey, using their chameleonic hides to merge with shadow and terrain before launching forth to burrow into living brains to harvest their secrets. The various species of Gaunt, however, instill a special kind of dread, not through size or stealth or withering firepower, or even nightmarish appearance, but rather through sheer weight of numbers. While Termagaunt and Gargoyle announce their imminent arrival with volleys of grotesque projectiles from flesh-borers, devourers, and even spinefists, the Hormagaunt charges forth howling, with naught but claws, teeth, and talons. However, they leap and bound with such terrifying speed that there may only be time to unleash the briefest of volleys before this sea of spikes and chitin slam into the targeted lines and unthinkingly embrace their dread purpose. As the shadow in the warp floods the doomed planet, the earthquakes and psychic nightmares precede clouds of mycetic spores that thunder through the air and slam upon the soil. Hormagaunts pour forth, their every cell charged with vitality, and soon entire hordes of these beasts gather and advance on the bastions of life. Hormagaunts are less dependent on the hive mind than other non-synapse creatures of the Hive Fleet, because they are genetically instilled with a ravenous and insatiable appetite. This causes them to hurl themselves at biomass with a berserker fury and a complete disregard for their own survival. All they know is they must feed immediately, constantly, endlessly. And while there is terror in seeing their numbers, for the Hormagaunts themselves, there is also a ghastly homicidal inspiration in these very same numbers. When they attack in sizable quantities, they seem to grow stronger, just from weight of numbers, and their efficiency in killing grows. Nevertheless, when separated from the dominance of the hive mind, rather than succumb to animalistic urges as other bioforms often do, Hormagaunts are known to burrow or seek places of refuge and concealment. Once secluded, they sink into a dormant state, slowing their metabolism to an almost imperceptible level, one almost indistinguishable from death. But the spark of their annihilistic drive is there, like a fire choked of oxygen, the embers glowing patiently, waiting for that surging breath of air brought by the return of the hive mind, which will rekindle their ferocity, at which point they explode back into life to fulfill their devoted, slaughterous purpose. As we saw with the Tyranid warrior, when the Tyranids first arrived in our galaxy, they appeared quite different to the forms we know today. The original design of the Hormagaunt was more bulky, with 4 sets of identical oversized scything talons and a greatly elongated head. Their function, however, has remained completely unchanged. That function is somewhat elegant in its brutal simplicity. Advance, kill. And they are well equipped through meticulously crafted evolution to fulfill these 2 roles. In addition to flesh-shredding fangs and tissue-rending scything talons, powerful hind legs propel them at fantastic speeds, allowing them to launch into the air, clearing obstacles and defenses and pounding across the field of battle in the blink of an eye. Adrenal glands can be grown to further enhance this already unnatural alacrity, and when they arrive in combat, scything talons are poised to punch through armor and plunge into flesh. Toxin sacs are another horrendous adaptation. These glands swell along their upper back and are laden with small mites that secrete a potent poison that coats the natural weapons of the Tyranid, not only causing grievous additional trauma, but they are also laden with the phage cells of the Tyranids. The term phage literally means to eat, and this is precisely its function. The phage cells attach to the host cells, injecting DNA and beginning the horrendous process of turning the unwitting flesh into raw material for the Hive Fleet, which means when the Hormagaunts feast upon the fallen, they draw greater energy in a considerably shorter time, accelerating the power and generation of more Hormagaunts. Even if a Weld manages to resist the Hive Fleet and defeats the swarm, the Hormagaunt often arises once again soon after, not from reseeding via fresh spores from above, but because Hormagaunts are capable of independent reproduction. When the tendrils of the hive mind begin to wane, a dreadful survival instinct rears up in the Hormagaunts, and parthenogenesis begins. This self-cloning method is sometimes seen in insects and reptiles, and is a method that can replace normal reproductive means and can just as easily be discarded when no longer needed. This makes the Hormagaunt one of the single most hard-to-eradicate species in the known galaxy. Should just a single organism survive the defeat of the swarm, it can go to ground, whereupon this dormant ability activates. Hidden away, they begin to reproduce, and as each brood matures at their customary accelerated rate, it too begins to reproduce. This creates a geometric rate of multiplication that can restore the swarm to fearsome numbers in just a few days, at which point starvation and the frantic need for fresh biomass accentuates their ferocious nature, and once again they gallop towards the nearest source of fresh biomass. Quick and deadly, single-minded of purpose, the strength and terror of the Hormagaunt is in its numbers. Produced en masse by the Hive Fleet, capable of lying dormant and of mass self-reproduction, they are an endless source of ammunition to fire at those to whom the great devourer has finally come. But through loyalty to the Imperium and faith in the Emperor, we will achieve victory over such abominations. Purge the Xenos. The Emperor wills it so.